manifesto. And what you're looking at there, a lengthy YouTube video that detailed his plan to attack.
New details this morning about the shooter. Earlier this morning, Santa Barbara Sheriff Bill Brown told us that Roger had been treated for mental illness and had been prescribed medication, and that he planned Friday night's attack for at least a year.
But let's take a moment here and really remember the victims. Here, this is Christopher Martinez. He was shot inside that Ivy Deli. He was just 20 years old, and his father called him a, quote, great kid.
This is Veronica Weiss, 19 years old. She was shot by Roger while standing outside a sorority house. Her friends remembered her as a beautiful, beautiful friend, also always smiling.
And I want to share with you a photo that we just received of another victim, 22-year-old Katie Cooper here. She was studying archaeology at UC Santa Barbara. Our thoughts and prayers certainly with all of your family and friends today. But you imagine, the chaos and the panic, how frenetic it was, that lasted just 10 minutes Friday night. In that time, though, Elliot Rodger created an incredible amount of chaos.
Yeah, there are 10 crime scenes there, including Roger's apartment, a sorority house, a local deli, multiple streets where he engaged in a shootout, or more than one shootout, with police.
Sarah Seidner has been following the story, and she joins us now live from Isla Vista. Sarah, I know that it's early there, but what are you seeing this morning? I know there are a lot of vigils.
Yeah, Christy and Victor, we are standing outside of the Ivy Deli Mart, and you had mentioned this victim, and it's really important, I think, to this community that the victims are talked about more than the suspect and his manifesto and his rage against society, women in particular. Let me show you the vigil that's growing here. It is filled with candles. There are notes to the family. There are pictures. It says, "Your family will miss you, Chris," with a big red heart and some pictures of Christopher Ross Martinez. His father spoke, tearing up twice, a gut-wrenching cry at the end, trying to explain to other parents that you never think it's going to happen to you, but it does happen. He says it happened to our family. I want to show you one more thing up here. This is just the process of healing, as people in this community try to understand what happened, try to heal from this. There are 2 bullet holes that you will see, and sticking out of those bullet holes are bouquets of flowers. Underneath that, lots of candles. This community shaken by this. The students quite nervous yesterday. They told us time and again in the different people we were talking to that they were nervous every time a car drove by, because the suspect was doing a lot of what he did in drive-by shootings. He was also ramming people with his car, running people over and shooting back at deputies as well. This has created quite the scene, 10 scenes in total here in Isla Vista. Christy?
All righty, Sarah, we appreciate it very much. Take good care there. Thank you.
So, Sarah Seidner, thank you so much. And you can also watch Sheriff Brown on the next program coming up at 9 o'clock with Candy Crowley at State of the Union for a full interview 1 hour from now. And just last month, Roger's family reached out to police, as we know now, after they discovered social media posts about suicide, also killing people. But police who went to the home, they said that he was polite and courteous. And when they did a mental health check at his residence, they said things appeared to be fine, so they left.
Yeah, this baffles, I think, a lot of people to hear this. So let's bring in retired law enforcement agent Lou Palumbo. Lou, thank you for being here. Can you walk us through, what happens when police show up at someone's door for a mental health check? What specifically are you looking for?
Well, I think in this instance it was a welfare check, and that's a little bit different. What they want to do first and foremost is make sure that the individual that they've been summoned to visit is actually okay. In the instance with this gentleman, he put forth a sufficient behavioral package or characteristics that left the police with the impression that he was in fact okay. It wasn't a mental health check. I think there were individuals that were involved with him, such as mental health professionals, that knew there was some deep-rooted problems here, the same way the family picked up on it. Something slipped through the cracks here. Simply stated, this was on the radar screen. I think it was an issue of how it was managed or handled after they realized there was a problem.
You know, the sheriff, when we spoke with him last hour, talked about mental health. For people who didn't see it, let's play a portion of it.
Mr. Roger was, although deeply disturbed, he was able to put on a front, as it were, and convince them, and obviously convince a lot of other people that he didn't have problems that were so severe that it would require some fairly extreme intervention by mental health professionals. He obviously had been treated for quite some time by mental health care professionals. He'd been prescribed medication, and you know, he had a severe underlying mental illness.
And Lou, there was something else that criminologist James Fox, who we spoke with last hour, said, and this will stay with me. He said, there are no red flags. Quote, yellow flags. There are only yellow flags that turn red after the blood is spilled. Do you agree that there's no red flag?
No, I don't agree with that statement at all. I think there are times that individuals demonstrate an extreme type of behavior, and you have to react to it. The point in fact is that in law enforcement, we come up against these individuals on a daily basis. We refer to them as EDPs, or emotionally disturbed people. Their red flag is there. The behavior is erratic, it's violent. Those are red flags. There's nothing yellow about them, and those are the flags that we react to. Unfortunately, at best, when they conducted this mental health check or this welfare check, there were probably some yellow indicators. But there's something interesting here. This young man had been prescribed medication, which means he'd seen an MD. I'd be curious to know what the MDs are going to say about this incident in light of the fact that they were treating him.
Well, and I don't know that we'll ever get that information, because medical information so many times
HIPAA laws protect them.
Right, HIPAA laws protect them. But one of the other things the sheriff said that really stood out to us this morning was the fact that based on all of his information, he can deduce Roger had been planning this attack for at least a year. So I want to ask you, are people that good at covering up tracks that he specifically was able to outsmart police or sheriff's deputies when they went to his home for this welfare check?
Yes, I think you should never underscore or underestimate anyone. I think there was one particular point, though, where this young man crossed the threshold, and that was approximately a month ago when he chose to purchase 3 very dangerous weapons, high-capacity automatic pistols, from 3 different locations. I think he hit a threshold where he realized that he was going to carry that out. As far as them being able to mask this, I don't think for this young man it was that problematic, because through his own words he'll speak to you as to how disenfranchised he was from mainstream America, and in particular his own demographic. So he could have been navigating, harboring these feelings, and there'd be no way anybody would know unless they engaged him in conversation, and that doesn't sound like that's what went on.
So do you think
apparently something triggered the parents, though?
Do you think there should be some alert or something? Because I'm sure that we will hear from people who are adamant about protecting gun rights that if a man wants to buy 3 guns over the course of a year, he should have that right, and God entitles him to him in the Constitution. But my question is, should there be some alert if you buy 3 guns? At 22 years old with no criminal history.
I don't think that. Well, you hit the nail on the head there. No criminal history. You see, part of the flaw in the system is that we're content to give someone a weapon that our military and law enforcement agents use as long as they haven't been convicted of a felony. I have been a proponent of implementing a program or a mechanism that requires some type of psychological screening, the same one that we go through in law enforcement before they give us a firearm, along with a criminal history check, firearms training, and an education as to how you may use this weapon. But we're at an impasse, as we all know, and this has become a political issue instead of an issue of conscience and morality. And this is an exercise at this point of problem solving, and we're not on that mode in this culture in any capacity, not with this topic, not with immigration, with nothing that we look at. It's all about politics, about what side of the aisle you sit on, and that's why we're making no headway here. The tragic part, Victor, is this is going to happen again. Everybody needs to understand that. This is going to happen again.
Those are sobering words.
Let that sit in. Lou Palumbo, thank you so much for spending some time with us this morning.
We appreciate your insight, sir.
Thank you.
And of course, we'll have much more on the calendar.